Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 409 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about quarterback Tua Tagovaiola signing with the Atlanta Falcons. No NFL team in recent years have been more all over the place with the quarterback position than the Falcons. In 2024, they gave Kirk Cousins a 4-year, $180 million deal and then immediately drafted Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th overall pick. Now they've moved on from Cousins, still have Penix, but have brought in former Dolphins QB Tua Tagovaiola, who was recently let go by Miami. Tua's stats are as followed: 120 touchdowns, 59 interceptions, with a completion percentage of 68. This is a quarterback that I think is very good, and things went south with the Dolphins because the whole team fell apart. It's of course worth noting that he's dealt with injury, most notably concussions. On this podcast last week, I talked about Kyler Murray signing with the Vikings, and I think this is a similar situation. Tua is walking into a good spot with the Falcons. There is talent on this roster. You have a really good wide receiver in Drake London, who the year before last had 100 catches, and a tight end in Kyle Pitts, who is finally living up to the hype, having a career-high 88 catches last season. It gets talked about a lot when it comes to the Falcons over the last few years. They are a team that on paper should be a better offensive team, and I think bringing in a guy like Tua is the right choice. He's not one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but he is a solid starting quarterback who can win you football games when he's surrounded by talent. And I don't put it against him that the Dolphins have moved on from him. I think the Dolphins were just moving on from everyone. They moved on from the star receiver. They traded away the other wide receiver. They moved on from the head coach. So naturally, they made a change at quarterback. I still believe in Tua. I don't think he had his best season, but nobody had their best year on the 2025 Miami Dolphins. It's not a given that Tua is going to be the Falcons starting quarterback, and this is a weird quarterback competition in that both are lefties. It's also noteworthy that the team has a new head coach in Kevin Stefanski, who had been with Cleveland. Stefanski definitely sees a chance at redemption for Tua and sees a connection between himself and the 28-year-old quarterback, telling Mike Garafolo of NFL Network, quote, "There's something to be said when you're fired. I can attest to that. You want to prove people wrong. You have a chip on your shoulder. I think where I'm coming into this, where Tua's coming into this is, listen, this is not exactly how you thought it would go, but guess what? That's the reality, and how are we going to respond? I think what he's made of, you look back at his career, you look back at his college career, he's responded," end quote. Maybe I'm reading too much into those comments, but for me, that sounds like a guy who wants Tua Tagovaiola to be his starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. That is a coach who is buying into the narrative around this player. He, like me, thinks that there's something left in the tank for Tua Tagovaiola. I know there are many NFL analysts and insiders who have never been that high on Tua. He's never been a guy who had great numbers. I have always been a fan of his. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback right now, obviously. I do think there was a point where he was one with the Miami Dolphins. Mike McDaniels got some really good seasons out of Tua. And I think there have been factors as to why the last 2 seasons he hasn't been as consistent. Injuries have played a major factor. The falling apart of the Miami Dolphins as a team has been a major factor. Tyreek Hill, his number 1 wide receiver, not being a happy camper has been a major factor. Tua Tagovaiola needed a change in scenery, and I think Atlanta is the perfect destination to resume his career as a starting quarterback. I'm historically not that interested in making predictions, especially when it comes to wins and losses in sports. It's too unpredictable of a thing to predict. But I will say this. My prediction right now is that Tua is going to emerge as the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, and I think it's the right choice. I think he is the right quarterback for the Falcons. The minute I saw the signing, I said to myself, this makes sense. Like the same I felt last week with Kyler Murray. I think these are the right teams for these quarterbacks. It doesn't mean that I think either of them are top 5, top 10 quarterbacks. I just think these are the right situations for their careers to take off again. I 100% believe that the Falcons should give Tua every opportunity to be their starting quarterback. They didn't put their full belief into Kirk Cousins. It doesn't sound like they believe in Michael Penix Jr. I just hope they believe in Tua and give him an opportunity to have success in Atlanta, because I do believe this is a talented roster that can win football games, and Tua has proven he can be a quarterback that can help a team make the playoffs. I mean, it's easy to forget that this was a guy who was at the helm of a high-scoring offense with the Miami Dolphins a few seasons ago. Tua did look like an MVP candidate when he had weapons like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So I'm not the only person who was high on Kyler Murray going to the Vikings, but I do feel like I'm one of the only people who's even talking about Tua to the Falcons. I don't know if both of these are going to work out, but I do believe in both of them. Like, I believe that Kyler Murray is going to have success with Minnesota, and I believe that Tua is going to be the starting quarterback and win football games with the Atlanta Falcons. Because yes, I believe in these individual quarterbacks, but more so, I believe in these rosters, and I just think that the Falcons, all they really need is a steady quarterback like Tua, who's not going to lose you football games, who's going to do enough to be able to win them at times. Like, guys, the career of Tua Tagovailoa is not over. The story is not ended. He is only 28 years old. Again, I'm not saying he's going to win an MVP. I'm not even saying he's ever going to sniff at a Super Bowl. I just think he is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. He is too good to be somebody's backup. And right now, he has so much to prove. Yes, the Dolphins are paying him a lot of money, but they are paying him to not be their starting quarterback. He is fighting for his future in the NFL as a starting quarterback. He's a former number 1 overall pick. He's never had to fight for a job before. Another reason why I think this is an ideal landing spot for Tua is because there's no real pressure on him to succeed. Nobody has sky-high expectations for the Falcons. In most people's eyes, they are a middling football team that could maybe win, 9 games next year at best. They're not viewed as a postseason team. They're viewed as a team with good individual players, but nobody thinks they're a really good team yet. I would not feel good about Tua going to a team with Super Bowl expectations. No, this is a team that all they need to do is make it to Wild Card Weekend, and this year would be viewed as a giant success for Tua and for the Falcons. Tua just got to a spot where most quarterbacks get to. They get a boatload of money, and then all the talk surrounding them is just about their contracts. It's no longer about them as a player, and that's something that I like about this situation. It's just going to be about Tua the player. It's no longer about a team overpaying him, how he's not a franchise quarterback. This year is just all going to be about Tua as a starting quarterback, and the question is, can he make the Atlanta Falcons a better football team? I clearly think the answer is yes, but I desperately want to see it. Like, I think it is an interesting narrative. It is something that I am looking forward to watching each and every Sunday. There was a time not that long ago where he was the clear-cut second best quarterback in the AFC East behind only Josh Allen, and now he's out of the division. He's no longer the starting quarterback for the Dolphins. Many people, including myself, believed in Miami. They thought that team was building towards something special. I thought Mike McDaniel was going to be the coach for a long time, and I thought that the Dolphins would eventually become a Super Bowl contending team, but alas, that never happened, and here we are. McDaniel is now the offensive coordinator of the Chargers, and Tua has an opportunity to be the starting quarterback for the Falcons, but that's not a given, and I think this is just another example of how the windows in the NFL are short. 1 minute we think the Dolphins are the real deal, and the next we no longer believe in them, and we have to break up the team altogether. I mean, I don't want this podcast to become about the Miami Dolphins, but they are going to be the most unwatchable team in the NFL come next season. There is no more talent on that roster, and these guys are left alone to rebuild their careers. That's what McDaniel is trying to do with the Chargers. If he can win a playoff game with Justin Herbert as an offensive coordinator, he's probably going to get another head coaching gig, and the same goes for Tua. If Tua can make the playoffs with the Falcons, he's going to secure himself another contract, and he's going to remain a starting quarterback in the NFL. Wide receiver Jalen Waddle is in a terrific situation with the Broncos. I mean, he's on a legitimate Super Bowl contending team, and who knows what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill. I know a lot of people are down on Tua. I'm just saying, I think it was more about the situation in Miami than about the individual player. My feelings on Tua as a quarterback has not changed. I think he is a very good, consistent quarterback who can play great at times, and I think that's all you need in the NFL if you have a talented enough roster surrounding him. Being a fan of the New England Patriots, I've seen this guy play a lot. He has played really well against my team. He's won big games against the Patriots. I've just always been impressed by him, and I don't mean this as a diss, but how good or bad he is as a quarterback has to do with the situation he's in. When the Dolphins were a good team, he was a good quarterback. When the Dolphins had a bad roster, he was a bad quarterback. That's not a diss. He's just not a franchise quarterback. He doesn't elevate above the situation that he's in. And it's quite possible I could be proven wrong, but I think with the Falcons, he is walking into a very good situation, a team on the rise, a team that doesn't have high expectations, but could surprise people come this season. I believe in Stefanski as a head coach. He had success with Baker Mayfield, and he was absolutely in a tough spot in Cleveland with the Deshaun Watson situation. He's in a much better spot with Atlanta. Overall, when it comes to Tua, I just feel like most people just do not have strong feelings about him as a quarterback. Like, remember when Daniel Jones was nearing the end with the Giants? Everybody thought we were talking about the absolute worst quarterback in the league, and then he proved a lot of people wrong in the beginning of last year when he was with the Colts, and then he got injured, and now he got paid $88 million by the Colts. I don't think anybody really thinks that Tua is a bad quarterback. I just think they feel absolutely nothing towards him. They think of him as just an average starter. I'm going to admit right here, right now, that I think more highly of him than most people. I think he is somebody who is capable of possibly winning a Super Bowl if on the right team. I think at his best and when healthy, Tua is better than Sam Darnold. He's better than Daniel Jones. And maybe this is a hot take. I think he's even better than Jalen Hurts. And some of you might argue that that was all in the past and he's no longer that guy. I just think he's walking into a really good situation with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and running back Bijan Robinson. Like, those are three talented offensive players that are going to help Tua have one of his best seasons. I respected this move by the Falcons because I think this is them admitting that they need to win football games right now. I think that's why they're bringing in Tua Tagovailoa, because he's not the big name. He doesn't get people excited. Nobody other than myself was like, wow, this is really interesting. The Falcons are signing Tua. No, most people in the public are done with Tua as a starting quarterback. They think they've seen enough. I think the Falcons and Stefanski look at the situation and go, yes, he might not be the best quarterback in the league, but he's better than what we've gotten over the last few years in Atlanta. I think the Michael Penix Jr. situation reminds me of what happened with the Colts with Anthony Richardson. These are young, talented quarterbacks. They're just not ready yet to be starting quarterbacks. They're not the right fits for those particular teams. The Falcons have not been good for a while. They are in win now mode. And if that's really the case, their best chance of winning games next season is with Tua as their starting quarterback. At least give him an opportunity to start the year as your starter. If he's not good, you can go back to Michael Penix Jr., who, by the way, is coming off of an injury. What do you have to lose? Give Tua an opportunity to prove he's still that guy from the early part of his career in Miami. I gave a lot of high praise last week on this podcast to Kyler Murray. I think Tua Tagovailoa is an even better quarterback than Kyler Murray. I get it. I might sound crazy. I might be in the minority on this one, but I still believe in this quarterback. I have always believed in this quarterback, and I think there's a real opportunity for his best football to still be yet to come. The door is open in Atlanta because there's been a regime change. Former Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan is running the team. Stefanski is now the head coach. They are going to want to win games right away to prove they are once again a viable NFL franchise. It's never a safe bet to bet on the Falcons. They are one of the most up and down franchises in NFL history, but here I am. I am telling you that I believe in Tua, and thus I believe in the Atlanta Falcons. I think they are going to be a playoff caliber team next year and surprise many, many people. I can talk about Tua and Kyler Murray all I want on this podcast, but they have to prove it. They have to go on the field and win games with their new teams if they're going to rejuvenate their careers. It's also possible that I'm just getting swept up in the narrative of it all. I think it would be one of the better stories in the NFL for Tua to resurrect his career with the Falcons, but I really do believe it because I believe in this player. I think he is a really good starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't think every starter needs to be Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. And I do think that Tua is far better than the average quarterback. I think he's better than the backups that people think should be starters. I think he's better than Mac Jones. The keys to Tua's success next year are clear, one of them being that the Falcons are going to be a good football team under Kevin Stefanski, and the other one is that he remains healthy. I think that if Tua was healthy his entire tenure with the Miami Dolphins, he would still be the quarterback of the Dolphins, and I don't really see how you could disagree with that. On one hand, I can believe in Tua as a quarterback, but on the other hand, I don't necessarily disagree with the Dolphins moving on from him because I don't think that situation was going to work out in the end between the two parties. I don't think that team is in win now mode. Tua is 28 years old. He should be on a team trying to make the playoffs. He's not the right guy for a rebuild, which the Dolphins are currently in. I'll be the first to admit if I'm wrong about Tua or if I'm wrong about Kyler Murray. This is just how I feel about both of these quarterbacks quarterbacks and their current teams at this moment in time. I'm going to be watching them really closely. But I will end on this. I will be very, very surprised if Tua does not start the season as the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, because it's like, guys, what exactly do you have to lose? Michael Penix is coming off of an injury. You don't really believe in him all that much as your future quarterback. You clearly brought in Tua for a reason. You need to see what the 28-year-old has left. This is also a team that has made some confusing decisions when it comes to the quarterback position. Make the right one, make the solid one, and have Tua start the year as your starting quarterback. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every week on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.